But it's going to be my first attempt to explain my awakening from my perspective, unlike the You're Not Alone videos. My awakening started in February, about mid-February, early 2018, mid-February-ish, was when the first big boom went on. And that was simply that I was going to take the time and do whatever it took to figure myself out. I had been dealing with trauma literally going back my entire life. My mom had autism, my brother had autism, my grandfather had autism. My dad was a victim of childhood trauma himself. Went all the way back to his childhood, deep, dark stuff, family, generational stuff. I have a huge Southern family, huge. And there's skeletons like you wouldn't believe, just throughout our history. Very poor, not a lot of education, that type of stuff, right? And I've been trapped in that my entire life. An entire life. So, that was it. I was like, I'm gonna figure something out. Originally, look, it did not start with figuring out all that stuff. Trust me. It was, I'm gonna figure something out. Something about myself. I'm gonna figure it out, and that's where it started. And I won't take you through all because that took a long time. Months and months and hours and days and so on and so forth. And then I started to notice. As I got more in touch with the things I had literally went through and learned more all about them, everything I could about all of them, I started to notice a desire to kind of connect with other people that might have any experience with anything, to deal with, from little stuff, big stuff, all kinds. I didn't understand emotions at all. Is what that I discovered when I was during that process. I didn't understand. I knew what it was. I could define them. I could look them up, read about them, that type of stuff. But I wasn't sure the difference between happy and sad anymore. To be honest, it's nothing. That's was kind of where I was at. So that was my journey. That through that first 9, 10 months, And then as that started happening, a little more and a little more, I started noticing different stuff, and I just, followed my instincts. It was difficult at times. It didn't happen all the time. But I always tried to get back on track, and so on and so forth. Blah, blah, blah. And then my first big kind of, and during that process, I realized I had to go get in touch. I had to reach out and start getting, and then a big thing happened with my daughter that was very significant, and it led me to I wanted to help her, and I wanted to connect with her and figure out if I could help her, right, in a way that I'd never been able to, because I'd never been able to form that emotional bond, because I had never had one with anyone. So I just didn't know how to do that. So, but that desire to do that and connecting with everything that's going on with her, and boom, that set something off that I decided to run with. And what it led to was getting in touch, though, with eventually led to was understanding, exactly what trauma was, and that was that there's two sides to it, regardless of which. To both, trauma involves more than one person. A lot of times, it's very emotional. Trauma, a lot of emotions involved. And what I discovered was that the thing about emotions is there's two sides to those too. Like, to fully understand an emotion like anger, you have to understand the yin and yang of anger, the good and the bad of anger. Everything has two sides, even good stuff. So it was that that was huge. Once I could do things like feel my daughter's, not just sympathize, but really empathize with her own personal struggle, not necessarily as my daughter, just as a person going through life. And that was huge. That got me in touch with the first thing I had to figure out, which was communicating with the mom, not feeling like I'd ever even had one because of the autism thing, and misunderstanding her my whole life. And what I then started to quickly discover is every time you came to got an understanding, right? It allowed you. It took away all the confusion that you had over that pain, trauma, because it showed me that the reason all that is still with you is because you don't understand exactly what you went through, because you don't understand, especially when another person was involved, what they brought to the party, because it's two things, right? Even in the worst person, you can find good in them, and in the best you can find bad, So emotions are no different, and it just took me a while to kind of